Veteran rapper Talib Kweli, a man known for his sharp lyricism, political conviction, and decades-long dedication to the culture of hip-hop, found himself at the center of a fiery confrontation that spiraled into one of the most intense backstage moments captured in recent memory. The confrontation took place last Saturday night at a Black Star concert, a show meant to celebrate not only his own legacy but also the brotherhood between himself and Yasin Bey, performances that had fans buzzing weeks in advance. But what unfolded backstage was something no fan could have predicted, something raw and unfiltered that revealed the pressure, passion, and emotional stakes that often simmer beneath the surface of live performances. Everything began the moment security stepped onto the stage, not at a random point of the night, not during a natural pause or at a moment where the impact might have been softened, but exactly 1 minute after the clock struck 11 p.m. That single minute, that tiny fragment of time between what was allowed and what violated the venue's rules, was enough to ignite a firestorm. For the crowd, it happened fast. One moment, the music was blasting, the energy soaring, the audience feeding on the synergy between the artists and the atmosphere. The next moment, security personnel walked into the spotlight like ghosts emerging from the shadows, attempting to end the show in a manner that Talib believed was not only abrupt but borderline disrespectful. Fans barely had a moment to process what was happening when the stage lights dimmed and voices behind the curtains rose sharply, signaling that things were spiraling behind the scenes. What the audience didn't know at that exact moment was that Talib Kweli was backstage, pacing with fury vibrating through his veins, trying to understand how a show so carefully crafted and so emotionally charged could be cut off so abruptly, and by people who, in his eyes, didn't grasp the cultural weight or the emotional investment of the performance. Within moments, all hell broke loose. The air backstage grew thick, the kind of thickness that precedes storms. Voices clashed, bodies shifted, and tension buzzed like an exposed wire. When Talib finally let loose, it wasn't subtle, it wasn't restrained, it wasn't calculated for the cameras, for social media, or even for those standing around him. It was the uncensored, unapologetic voice of an artist who felt violated in a moment meant to be lived, not interrupted. TMZ hip-hop captured everything, every scream, every insult, every attempt at de-escalation that failed spectacularly. Their footage shows Talib lunging forward with words sharp enough to slice through the noise, demanding to know who in the world these men thought they were. "Who the F*** do you think you are?" he shouted, voice echoing off the walls with the kind of thunder that turns heads in an instant. His voice wasn't simply loud, it was loaded with emotion, frustration, disbelief, and a sense of violation that comes only when an artist feels the integrity of their performance has been tampered with. A cluster of men's security guards, stagehands, crew members stood frozen in a semicircle, eyes darting, trying to decide whether to stand firm or step back. Some blinked in surprise, others tried to shrink into the background. One or two attempted to intervene with nervous hands raised or soft chill gestures, but the attempts were futile. Talib wasn't in a space to be soothed. He wasn't in a space to swallow his frustration, he was in a space to confront. According to the audio picked up during the confrontation, Talib's anger wasn't simply about timing. It wasn't just that the curfew was broken by a minute, it was about the manner in which security marched onto the stage. In his mind, like intruders rather than protectors. The tone, the energy, the implication. To him, it felt like someone barging into his home without knocking, without respect, without a moment of consideration for the emotional gravity of a live performance that meant something to him, his fans, and his legacy. The longer he talked, the deeper the fury ran. At one point, Talib zeroed in on a stagehand, a man who had been standing near the curtain holding a radio. Eyes wide, hands trembling slightly, unsure of what to say or do. The tension between the two grew like a shadow stretching across a wall, thickening with every second of silence. Talib stepped toward him with slow, deliberate movements, his voice rising like a wave ready to crash. "You got something to say? Huh? You think this is a game?" Talib barked. The stagehand opened his mouth, then closed it again, swallowing hard enough for even the nearest cameraman to notice. Talib didn't let up. He pushed harder, words laced with frustration and disbelief until the man finally wilted under the pressure, turning silently and walking away, head bowed, shoulders sinking as he disappeared into the darker part of the backstage area. Those watching reacted immediately, some with supportive claps, others with nervous laughter, others with quiet mutters under their breath. But Talib wasn't done, not even close. His attention shifted next to one of the black security guards standing near the barricade, separating crew from performers. Tall, muscular, wearing the typical black shirt, black boots uniform, the guard maintained a rigid posture, the kind of posture that suggested years of training, years of being told not to react emotionally, years of being told to stay professional, no matter what. But even he looked uneasy as Talib advanced toward him, voice cutting through the air like a blade. And then Talib said something that made the moment even more explosive, even more charged with emotion and conflict. He accused the security team of treating him and his crew differently because they were black artists. "You wouldn't have pulled that with a white artist," he shouted, pointing directly at the guard's chest. The words hit the room like a siren. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Someone's water bottle slipped from their hand and clattered on the floor. Another person sucked in a sharp breath, loud enough to be heard on the recording. For the black security guard, the accusation was a gup. His jaw clenched, his eyes flickered with something offense, hurt, or maybe frustration, but he didn't respond. He held his place, held his posture, trapped between his job and the emotional weight of being labeled complicit in something larger than a backstage disagreement. But Talib wasn't trying to shame him personally, at least, not in his own mind. In his mind, he was calling out a system, a pattern, a historical dynamic within the entertainment world, where black performers are sometimes met with less patience, less grace, less respect. Whether or not it was true in this particular case, in that heated moment, it was very real for him. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, suffocating. For a moment, it felt like time paused. Only the hum of equipment, the distant chatter of fans outside, and the heavy breathing of those involved filled the space. But the pause didn't last. A second guard, shorter, broader, possibly newer to the job, judging by the nervous dart of his eyes, stepped forward, trying to insert himself as a mediator. He raised both hands slightly, palms outward, a gesture meant to calm, to diffuse, to redirect the conversation into safer territory. But the moment he opened his mouth, Talib cut him off with a roar. "STFU." The words tore through the tension like a lightning bolt. Sharp, sudden, final. The guard flinched as if physically struck, eyes widening in shock before instinctively stepping back. He looked around, hoping for backup, for someone to intervene, for a sign that he wasn't alone. But the room was full of frozen faces, people who suddenly found their shoes, the floor, the ceiling, anything other than the moment in front of them, deeply fascinating. The guard hesitated only a second more before retreating quickly, almost stumbling over a cable on the ground as he scrambled away from the confrontation, breath quick, shoulders tense, heart pounding. For a brief moment after that explosive command, there was silence again, but this silence was different. This time, the energy had shifted. It wasn't just tension, it wasn't just conflict, it was the aftermath, the kind of heavy quiet that settles after something raw and human and chaotic has run its course. People looked at each other with wide eyes, as if asking silently what the hell had just unfolded. Some were stunned, others sympathetic, others awkwardly neutral, afraid to pick a side or offer an opinion. Cameras remained pointed, red lights blinking, capturing everything with an unforgiving lens.